I lost my virginity when I was between 16 and 17.
I lost my virginity at age 19 in a Ford Fiesta XR2.
I was 27, which is actually quite late, but on the other hand, I was Catholic, and that probably influenced it quite a lot, because it's something you're not really allowed to do. It's regarded as a mortal sin and everything. I had an offer before 27, but I left it till that age.
I definitely did not regret having sex for the first time. It was fantastic.
I didn't really regret having sex for the first time at all. I mean, after all, I was 27, so it's bound to happen sooner or later, I suppose. But I made such a terrible mess of it that I kind of regretted that. In fact, I was so clumsy and unsure of what I was doing that I ended up using 2 condoms instead of 1, which is kind of an achievement, really. But I was so incompetent at sex that that's how it worked out. I was amazingly bad.
The first time was after the local pub quiz. I wasn't supposed to go back to his, but we told my parents that the pub quiz finished an hour after it actually did. So we went back to his, in his room, just kissing and cuddling, the usual thing, and then I think we both sort of looked at each other and decided we were ready. For some reason we decided to do it doggy style. Neither of us had ever had sex before, so I was on all fours and he was hard, and it was just taking him a while, and I was like, what's going on? And he just said, oh, if only the vagina was where the anus is, because then I could enter you on a linear tangent. Which is a little bit bizarre, but I don't think it put me off particularly for the experience.
My first time came about through sort of a confluence of events. The girl I lost my virginity to, we'd spent a lot of time together, but like in public places, and we were sort of desperate to get some time alone, just to be together alone. There was no plan for having sex or anything. But my parents and my sister were actually going out for the day, so we decided she should come around and we could spend some time together. And whilst I think we were watching a film, like cuddled up on my bed, a particularly scary point of the film, she span round, buried her head in my chest, and when she looked up, kind of our eyes met, and it kind of went from there.
My girlfriend later said that she had quite a go at me, actually. So why didn't you tell me you were a virgin? Well, excuse me, if I'm a virgin, how am I even going to know that I need to tell you that? I don't know what I'm doing.
If I could change one thing, it would probably be a guy with a bit more experience, but that's only because of later sexual habits.
I lost my virginity about 12 years ago when I was 17.
My first initiation into sex education was at 9. My best friend had an older brother who used to tell her kind of all the gruesome details and stuff. So that was the first thing. But I actually had sex education at school from 11. So I was quite well knowledged and didn't ask my own parents about it because it wasn't something we talked about in our house. But my best friend's mum was a lesbian and very open about it, so any questions I had I always used to go and ask her.
We did have sex education at school, and I've got some vague memory of it when we were about 11, when we just went to secondary school, but I don't remember much about it, and there's certainly no sex education about gay sex. I think the only place I could have learnt about it was TV or the internet, but I think that a lack of gay sex education does lead to a lot of problems for young gay men.
My opinion on sex taught at school, based on my own opinion, was that there was very little. It was the kind of biology, the science. There was very little by the way of social, cultural or emotional in terms of how children would develop and what they'd be exposed to.
I think there should be more sex education in schools because the children don't really seem to have a clear understanding what they're getting themselves into, the consequences, what can the outcome be, especially pregnancy, and I think there should be more clear on that.
I think parents should take more of responsibility, I really do. On the other hand, parents don't take responsibility, and schools have to sit. I think my gut feeling is that it starts too young.
In my time, was very, very, very limited.
It does need it because the birth rate in the younger generation is increasing, and if education can help, sort that out, then it's not a bad thing.
I can't say that I regretted my first time, no.
I did regret my first time. Given the opportunity again, I would not have pursued it.
I realised I was bisexual at 13 when I found out I had a crush on one of my female teachers.
So I lost my virginity. When I say lost my virginity, I didn't. I made it to like third base, I think the Americans would say, which I would consider any sexual activity as losing my virginity. When I was 17, with a guy that I'd met on the internet, and we started seeing each other. We were both first timers. Neither of us had had a boyfriend before, and I went and stayed over at his house one New Year's Eve. His dad, who was a policeman, was out on duty for the evening, and my parents thought that I was at a friend's house party because I wasn't out to my parents or anyone really then. The actual experience of losing my virginity came about with a lot of coy sort of kissing and cuddling on the sofa while we watched a film, and then we went up to bed. He was in his bed and I was on the floor. It destined to happen that I ended up in his bed with him, and things went from there.
I did also have a first time with a girl. It happened at someone's birthday party, and it was in the shower. It was a glass-walled cubicle, me and her, and then a third girl stepped in and kind of came to join us. I don't regret it so much as it was a bad experience. I just think that I could possibly have done it in a more safe and secure environment before experimenting with voyeurism and things like that.
When I actually came out to my mum, or when she asked me if I was gay, her first point of concern was that it wasn't legal. She thought that there was a different age of consent, but it was only actually a couple of years before that, because we're talking about 2000, 2001. It was only a couple of years before I lost my virginity that the age of consent for gay men was lowered from 18 to 16, so it was all perfectly legal.
I don't think there is much to compare between having sex with a girl and having sex with a guy. They're very different experiences. I think the fact that I had sex with a girl before a guy probably meant that I was a lot more sexually open when I did finally sleep with men.
I regret the choice of girl and the sequence of events that led up to the event and the horrible train wreck that ensued.
Mum already knew that I was bi. She somehow managed to work it out. My dad's a Catholic, so whether he actually knows yet or not is another matter.
The story begins about a week before the event itself. I was staying with a friend of mine whose parents had gone away. We were staying in the house ostensibly to make sure that everything went smoothly while their parents were away, but we mostly spent the time behaving like irresponsible teenagers. And as part of that, it was part of our weekly ritual on a Wednesday evening that we would go to Rio's. It was the local sort of rock, metal, goth club. The walls would sweat and the floor was sticky. That kind of place. And I'd been going there for about the last 2 years. And this particular incident, there was a girl there. I hadn't singled her out in any particular way, but we danced together. And then we kissed. The following week, we went to Rio's again, and she was there. And again, we danced and we kissed. She suggested that we would leave together and go back to my house. Now, I ran the idea past the friends whose house we were staying at, and they were dead against the idea. At the time, it annoyed me, but I understand, with hindsight, why they wouldn't want to let a complete stranger into their house. So I did leave with her, and we returned to my mother's house. Then we went to bed together.
The story of it was I'd made friends with a guy at university. We got fairly close. We were good friends for quite a while, and we just decided to make things official, started dating, and it went from there, really.
Condoms do have an effect on the sexual experience. There is a reduction in sensation, and that does have an effect on the performance, but it is a necessary part of safe sex.
Condoms help a girl to feel safer, so in that way, yeah, it does make a really big difference.
I think the concept of a male pill is fantastic. At the moment, the only control we as men have over contraception is something that is detrimental to the sensation of sex. It takes away some of the sensation, which is a little unfair. If we decide to stop using them, we basically put ourselves at the mercy of the woman for her to take the pill. And not always maliciously, but if she's forgetful, if she misses a few, it's problematic. So if there was a male version, if we could take some control of that, yes, I would definitely take it.
I think there was a male pill that it would do the same as the female pill did. I'm all for it, yeah. If it's either that, take a pill, or wearing a condom, then I know what I would far rather prefer doing.
Would men be trusted to take it?
I think that's only one of the. It's only a small implication. I think the issue of preventing unwanted childbirth is actually just one of the many issues. I think you've got to think about sexually transmitted diseases. I think you've got a whole other thing. So just by having a male contraceptive doesn't solve the issue for sexually transmitted diseases, etc., which I think is actually more of a concern than having unwanted pregnancy.
My first time certainly did influence my second time, influenced my whole life in a sense, because since the first time was such a tragedy and a naturally worrying incident, and I was wondering if I was even sexually capable, I was going to get keyed up for the second time. And I thought, well, this isn't going to do me any good, actually, because if I get this nervous, I'm going to fail the second time, and it'll become kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I actually reverted to Buddhist chanting. I just chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo quite a lot, over and over again, and it calmed me down because it's rhythmic and it's repeated. It does tend to do that. So by the time I got to the second one, I was actually quite calm and not so alarmed. And the second time went okay. It wasn't amazing, but it was okay. much better than the first time was, but then it couldn't have been much worse, could it?
My first time did influence my second time, yes. The second time we didn't do it doggy style. Let's put it that way.
The person that I lost my virginity with, we stayed in a relationship for a couple of months afterwards, and we did have sex now and then when we could, because it was difficult because neither of us were out to our parents and we lived a train ride away.
I'm not sure at the time we were saying I love you, but we had a very long-term, very intimate relationship.
I was infatuated, but I did not love her.
I thought I loved the person I lost my virginity to. I certainly did at the time. Now I'm really not so sure I did.
I don't know. I think it was just coming up to the right point of time in my life, and he was my current partner, and we'd been together for 8 months or so. So I think it just happened to be the right place at the right time, and he was the person that I was with.
Porn has never influenced me much anyway. I've never enjoyed pornographic mags or stuff like that, and to be quite honest, when somebody's kind of wide and they're half hanging out and everything, I just it's not something I want to see. Even if I was keyed up and ready for it, if I saw that, it would put me off. So no, porn that hasn't influenced me in wanting to have sex at all, really.
Apart from sort of showing me what it is and how it's done, I don't think porn ever pushed me or gave me a need to have sex, but it did give me a curiosity about it. That I wanted to know what it was. These people seem to be having a lot of fun doing it. I want to do that too.
It influenced my need to masturbate, but never my need to have sex.
I'm pretty sure that porn gives a completely faked representation of what sex is. I can't see any relationship between porn and porn mags and porno films and real life, to be quite honest. I can see no relationship at all. It's fiction.
I feel that porn, at least normal porn, man and woman, no chips, dips, chains and whips, that sort of stuff, I feel that's the idealised version of sex. Women that can orgasm in under a minute, men that can go as long as they need to. I think that's just the ideal version. And as long as you take it as that, and not as that's what it should be every time you have sex, I feel it just can push you to excel. If you want to be better, if it's something that just pushes you to strive to be better at it, I don't think anything's particularly bad that pushes you to be better.
It does give a lot of false expectations in a way, because it does rely heavily on roleplay, which not everybody is into.
Recognise that porn is there for titillation purposes only and does not accurately portray sexual encounters between 2, 3, 5 people.
There's a lot of different aspects to look at why pornography may enhance or it may destroy.
I think pornography, the term, has become used to represent anything that is explicit in nature. So I think pornography, it's something that exists. I think a lot of people use pornography, and I think in certain scenarios it can be used in a healthy relationship, it can be used for the right reasons.
Probably there's more visual access to it, particularly the internet, but I don't think deep down inside it's any different than it always has been.
I like porn, or certain parts of porn. I think it's stimulating and very exciting. Not the porn itself, but the environment possibly. I think certain porn is awful. I mean, anything to do with children, I think, is just unbelievably awful.
I feel that pornography there's too much of it, especially on the internet. You can go onto a random website and they'll pop up. It's not really that good, especially for children, because it's really easy to access.
Don't do anything that you're not comfortable with. I think that's a massive one. So many, especially younger women, but also younger men, get pushed into doing stuff that they're just not comfortable with, and I think that's the worst thing you could possibly do, because it ruins your confidence.
My advice to a gay man who's thinking of approaching losing his virginity would be to take it slowly. You don't need to go all the way first time. You can build up to it.
Do use lubrication. It can make it so much more pleasant.
Do it when you feel ready. I would say get to know your partner first. Use me as a bad example, if nothing else.
If you're going to do it, I'd say, always have your sense of humour in the back pocket, because you can always have an accident where sex is concerned. Don't worry about it. You can have sex later. It isn't the end of the world.